The beginning of the story shows a man named Bradley Thomas, who works as a car mechanic. When he arrives at his workplace while bringing a car that he towed to be repaired, he sees his boss waiting for him, and his boss says that he wants to talk to Bradley in his office. Bradley refuses and asks if there is anything. "Will he be dismissed?" says Bradley. The boss immediately answers yes because his garage is experiencing an economic crisis that requires him to lay off workers. Bradley immediately packs his things and leaves with his car. When he arrives in front of his house, he stops, sits, and sees his wife in the car talking to someone on her cell phone. Bradley is suspicious and immediately approaches her. He also tells her that he has been fired. While chatting with his wife, Lauren, Bradley sees a red mark on his wife's neck. It is nothing but a kiss from someone else. Bradley, who is jealous, immediately checks his wife's cell phone. Bradley's suspicion is true. It turns out his wife has just finished calling a man. Bradley then angrily tells his wife to go inside the house, and then he vents his anger on the car by destroying it with his hands. Then Bradley enters the house. He invites his wife to talk face to face. Here Bradley asks how long his wife has been cheating. His wife answers that she has been cheating with another man for 3 months. Then they express their feelings to each other. In fact, Bradley's wife had a miscarriage that made her sad, plus Bradley, who was busy with his own work. Here Bradley convinces his wife to start over. His wife agrees because of Bradley's humility. Bradley also asserts that he will work for someone named Gil, who is a drug courier. Hearing that, his wife refuses. Bradley tries to convince her by saying that the economic situation like this will not make a family happy. 8 months later, in an apartment, Bradley, who is on duty looking for a courier who delivers a drug package. After completing his task, he returns home with a different situation. Now Bradley's life is better. He also has a big house and a luxury car. His wife is also pregnant. He is also more harmonious with his wife. When they are about to have a romantic relationship, Bradley receives a call from Gil, who tells him to go to his house immediately. They talk about their business there, and Gil tells Bradley that he has a new friend named Eleazar, who has a big connection in Mexico. Then Eleazar comes with his 2 men, Roman and Pedro. Here, Eleazar informs that his men will accompany Bradley. Bradley refuses because he sees that Roman appears to be a heavy drug user. He worries that Roman will act recklessly. Eleazar defends his men, stating that they have been trained by him. Then Gil convinces Bradley to carry out this crucial business task, promising a 3-month vacation when his baby is born. Bradley finally agrees, and he emphasizes to Eleazar that he will take control of the situation. Eleazar's men must obey him. Bradley tests Eleazar's man, Roman, by saying that if he tells him to discard the package, what would Roman do? Then Roman said that he would throw it away. The agreement is reached. They left for a pier to start the package pickup transaction. Before boarding the boat, here Roman made a fuss by refusing what he had agreed to. Here Pedro begged Roman to follow what they had agreed to before. Then they left. They stopped in the middle of the lake. Then Pedro dived and did his job, which was to release the package that was in the lake, until he managed to release the package. They returned to the pier. As they walked on the pier, Bradley ordered them to throw away the package because he suspected that there were police waiting in front. Here, the 2 men of Eleazar ignored the warning from Bradley and immediately hit Bradley. Until it was true, the 2 men of Eleazar were surrounded by the police, and a shootout occurred there. Bradley, who did not want to be caught, he walked alone to the boat. However, as he approached the boat, he heard the police asking for help. Something that crossed Bradley's mind: he would be a civilian who helped the police. Then he shot Pedro and Roman, but he also had to be arrested by the police. Then Bradley was interrogated by Detective Lawrence, who knew that Bradley was a clever person. He wanted to fool the police, but unfortunately the police were not stupid. Until Bradley was sentenced to 7 years in prison for murder and possession of illegal weapons. He was taken to a prison. There, Bradley was ordered to remove the objects on his body. He finally released his valuable jewelry, which was his wedding ring. Then he was examined for his health, and then escorted by a prisoner named Lefty. Bradley was placed in a cell on the upper floor. Bradley and Lefty met with an officer named Andre. Lefty told him that he was the officer who would arrange things here. Andre explained the rules that Bradley must obey while serving his sentence in this prison. One of them, when the bell rings, He must leave his cell to be absent. Night came. When the night roll call was in progress, the prisoners lined up in front of their cells. However, Bradley, who was still sound asleep, required them to wait until he came out. After Bradley came out, the officer here immediately approached him and warned Bradley that he had to be more disciplined and obey the rules of this prison. On one side, at Bradley's residence, where his wife was sleeping, there was someone who sneaked into his house and broke the window. Then he shot Bradley's wife with an anesthetic until his wife passed out. The next day, Bradley met a woman named Denise. Denise told him that she got a call from a doctor named Placid Man. He conveyed a message from Dr. Placid Man that his wife had complications with her pregnancy, and Dr. Placid Man wanted to meet with Bradley directly in prison at 10 a.m. to discuss it. They met, and it turned out that Dr. Placid Man was Eleazar's henchman who pretended to be an obstetrician. He told him that his boss lost $3.2 million due to the failed transaction at that time, and he also showed a photo of Bradley's wife, who had been kidnapped and held captive by Eleazar's men. And he also told him that Eleazar threatened to abort his wife. They made a negotiation where Bradley had to pay for his mistake by killing a person who was sentenced to life imprisonment, and he was in the center of Redleaf detention, in Block 99, named Christopher Bridge. Bradley just kept quiet and confused about what he had to do for his family. After that, Bradley was returned to his cell with Andre, the officer. When he arrived at his cell, he suddenly took off his shoes and hit Andre. It turned out that Bradley planned to make trouble by beating up the officer so that he would be transferred to cell block 99, which was in Redleaf. A fierce fight ensued until he finally knocked down Andre by breaking his arm. Then the other officers came and handcuffed Bradley. Bradley was taken down to be detained. On the way, because he didn't feel enough to be transferred to Redleaf, he finally made trouble again with the officers by hitting them. Bradley, who was too rebellious, was finally electrocuted by the officer and his plan succeeded. He was finally transferred to Redleaf. Arriving at Redleaf Prison, he was greeted by the chief guard there. He was named Warden Tuggs and with his 4 men. He asserted that Redleaf Prison was a low freedom level prison, meaning that this prison was very strict. Bradley was taken for examination. After the examination, he was taken to cell 59, and when he arrived at cell 59, Bradley was shocked because his cell was very dirty and full of human feces from previous prisoners, until he couldn't stand the stench. He covered his nose with his underwear. Not long after that, the officer knocked his cell and ordered him to go out to the field, to breathe fresh air with a duration of 60 minutes. When Bradley was looking around the prison situation, he saw a man approaching him. The person was Derek. Bradley asked Derek if he knew someone named Christopher Bridge, but Derek didn't know anything about the person named Christopher Bridge. Then Bradley saw a bunch of prisoners who were exercising. He was curious and approached them. However, Derek forbade him because they were very dangerous prisoners. Bradley didn't care about it. He still approached them and then made a riot and invited them to fight. They fell one by one with his signature deadly punch. The officer there stopped him with a warning shot, then detained Bradley. But Bradley again made trouble by beating up the officers. Then he was finally taken to cell block 99 with his head covered. The cell block 99 was in the basement and very isolated. He was put in there and he was fitted with an electric belt to paralyze him. Then Bradley was put into his cell, which turned out to have a lot of broken glass scattered inside. The scene shifts to Bradley's wife, who is being held captive in a very weak condition, and there is Dr. Placid Man, who is bringing an abortion doctor. The abortion doctor did not perform an abortion first, but only did a preliminary examination. Back to Bradley, who was injured in his cell. He shouted by calling the name Christopher Bridge. The prisoner next to Bradley's cell greeted him and said that there was no one named Christopher Bridge in Block 99. An officer approached and instructed Bradley to be quiet. The officer then informed him that some other inmates wanted to meet with him. Bradley was led to meet these inmates. To his surprise, it wasn't Christopher Bridge he was seeking. Instead, it was Eleazar. In reality, Christopher Bridge was merely a ruse to lure Bradley into cell block 99 for further torment. Eleazar is angry at Bradley because he lost $3.2 million, and because of Bradley, he also has to be imprisoned. And also because of him, his sister became a widow, because Pedro was her husband whom he had shot at that time. Bradley is tortured with electric shocks continuously while being shown photos sent by a doctor showing his powerless wife. After that, in his cell, Bradley talks to the inmate next to him again, and Bradley is opening his shoes to trick the electric belt so it can't shock him anymore. After talking, he is taken by the officer. When outside the cell door opens. The officer asks to close it, but Bradley refuses, saying he needs fresh air. The officer shocks him, and right away, sure enough, the belt can't shock Bradley anymore. But he pretends to be shocked. Then he beats and disables the officer there very quickly, then heads to the corridor where Eleazar and his henchmen are located. Upon arrival, he immediately beats his henchman and finishes him off, followed by his other 2 henchmen. After all his henchmen are gone, he approaches Eleazar and orders his henchmen to cancel his wife's abortion. But Eleazar is stubborn. He refuses to follow Bradley's order. With no other choice, Bradley tortures Eleazar first to make him comply. Eventually, when his right leg is injured, Eleazar surrenders and orders his men to cancel the abortion. Bradley also requests that his wife be taken to Gil to ensure she is truly safe. Then Bradley drags Eleazar. A masked man in handcuffs is seen, Jeremy, whom Bradley has taken hostage. As Bradley is about to close his cell door, suddenly Warden and his men arrive. They inquire about the whereabouts of his 2 men. Bradley replies that all are held hostage except for Wilson, who is dead. Bradley threatens that if the gate is opened, he will kill his men. Bradley asks for time to wait for a call from Gil to confirm that his wife is safe. Then the placid man and the Korean abortionist took Bradley's wife to Gil. After the doctor and the abortion expert leave, they are shot by Gil and Lauren. Once the situation is safe, Gil calls to confirm that his wife is safe with him. Gil then gives his phone to Lauren to talk to Bradley. Bradley conveys his last words to his baby: "You will grow up healthy and smart." Bradley feels very sad because he can't see his child forever. Back in prison, Bradley approaches Eleazar and finishes him off. In the end, Bradley is shot in the head by Warden and dies. And the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Because by subscribing, you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.